Today's training might be a little rough. You sure talk a lot.
What's up, guys, and welcome to What the Gaming.
What the?
On today's video, I want to kind of clarify a statement, or I guess an entire video from my last video. So there was a couple people who misconstrued what I was saying in the last video, and I just wanted to kind of go over that and give my actual thoughts and feelings and maybe expound upon a few things. So before getting into that, I just want to preface that in the last video, I was talking about where gaming is headed and how, like, it's not something that I am 100% comfortable with. Like, I've always been against an all-digital future since, like, the beginning. I prefer physical media. That's no surprise to anybody who, like, knows me. But I understand, and I mentioned in the video, that there's some things that digital provides that you cannot get from physical, such as super convenience, and other things like, I don't know, convenience is pretty much the only thing that I can think of, especially because, like, if your licenses or your account gets banned, those games are gone forever. But if you have a physical disc, you can always just pop it in an offline system and still play it, trade it with friends, all that good stuff. So I mean, in my opinion, there's far more advantages to physical media than there is to digital media. But in actuality, one of the people misconstrued what I was saying by saying that I think that gaming is dying, or gaming is not fun anymore. Now, to be fair, the way that they constructed their sentences and phrasing, they were either using AI, or English is definitely not their first language. So I tried not to, like, argue with them too much, except for, like, you know, a couple instances where my buttons were pushed. But I did talk to him a bunch of times, but he kept copy pasting the same response over and over again to everybody else. So, like, listing a list of AA games and indie games that are good and are fun in his opinion, some of which I disagree with, but that's, you know, subjective. We can't really talk about that. He also called the video rage bait, which I think is hilarious because, like, I literally was weighing pros and cons and talking about my personal beliefs on situations, not giving any kind of, like, you know, definitive statements about, like, the gaming industry as a whole, or what developers should or shouldn't do, or, like, how consumers are, like, doing anything wrong. I basically was saying this is how I feel, and I wanted to know if people agreed with me or not, which, based on the poll that I ran, which I'll show at the end of the video, it seems that most people did, I guess. But there are reasons why I would be wrong with certain things in those situations, and I want to talk about that first. So what I want to talk about first is clarifying my opinion or my statements. I don't make scripts, so this is just off the cuff and then I edit it later. But when I'm talking about, like, an all-digital future being scary, it's not so much the fact that, like, I'm losing my precious physical media and, like, I can't see them on my shelf, or I can't trade them in for cash, or I can't loan them to a friend. None of that stuff is, like, really pertinent to the conversation anymore, because, like, DRM is, like, still, like, a thing on some games, and some companies still implement it, that, like, yeah, you can just shut your game off at any point. I brought up that EA MMA example, how even though I have the physical disc, you just put it in the system and it just gives you a thank you, and, like, that's it. Like, the game's useless now. You can't play the offline modes, you can't play the story mode, the campaign, nothing. So it's not like they just blocked you from the online content. They completely deactivated the game on a disc that you own, which I think is super scummy. But of course, it's EA, so nobody's going to, like, lose too much sleep over criticizing EA. But justifications notwithstanding, I do understand that, like, since they are so more closely knit today than they were before, I do think that, like, physical media does have benefits still, in my opinion, but there are advantages to digital media as well. I mentioned updates and patches in the last video, and I wanted to expound upon that a little bit. Back in the day, if we got a game on a physical disc and we put it in, there was no internet connection, so there was no check-in, no DRM, and if that game sucked, or if that game required fixes, it just stayed that way forever. So games like, let's say, Dragon Ball Sagas was super glitchy and super slow. The frames were insane in that game, even though it's still a fun game. A lot of people consider that one of the worst Dragon Ball games, or that it's broken. Now, if you can imagine that coming out on, like, the PlayStation 3, where it actually had, like, updates and patches and whatnot, that game could have been not only expanded upon with the roster and, like, more story and stuff like that, but it could also have fixed a lot of the internal issues with the frame rate and the bugs and all and whatnot. So, like, but that's not particularly aligned with digital. That's just like the digital gaming era, because like you can just put patches and stuff over the internet. But that's another thing I didn't touch on last time, which one of my developer friends made a very good point. Most of the developed world doesn't really have great internet access yet. Fiber is like literally like nowhere, and I've lived in every major city. I've lived in Center City, Philadelphia. I've lived in New York City. I like lived in like New Jersey. Like I've spent like a ton of time in like well-populated places and areas, and like fiber optics were never available in any of the areas that I lived in for some reason. So I always had to stick with like business class internet. But the people that live in the South, and this is not even like a socioeconomic thing, talking about people can afford things or whatnot. This is just based on availability. If you live in like the Midwest or like the South, in the United States in particular, and other countries that are associated, like let's say Central America or South America, a lot of those countries don't have great internet access. Like, so outside of pretty much like China, South Korea, and Japan, internet is like hit or miss, and those places are a lot easier to contain because they're smaller and the infrastructure was built with the internet in mind. So when it comes to people having access to those patches and to those downloads and to digital gaming in particular, it's very dependent on where you're living, as well as your socioeconomic status, because not everyone can afford like, you know, that kind of internet. I literally know somebody whose console isn't connected to the internet and they use hotspot from their phone to play. And if they download a digital game, like you're looking at a couple days worth of like waiting for like a game to download. It's not like lightning fast like you would imagine. And I think like when we're looking at gaming, we always look at things in the best case scenario point of view. Now, any of those other people, if they went to go buy a physical game that didn't have to have those online check-ins or updates or patches, as long as there's offline content that can be played, they can literally just put a physical card or disc or anything like that, UMD, whatever it be, in their console of choice, and that game would still function, albeit it would not be as, it wouldn't be patched, and it wouldn't have all of DLC and stuff like that. And some people found this out the hard way with like Mortal Kombat 1 on the Switch. I know somebody who has it on the Switch, and when they put their phone in airplane mode, or not their phone, when they put their console in airplane mode on the plane, they lost access to all of their DLC and all of that stuff until they actually connected back to the hotel Wi-Fi that they were attending or going to. And I think that like a lot of people know this problem. That's the main reason that we saw like not that great of sales with the PlayStation Portal, because I do think that people are clamoring for handhelds. In my opinion, I think it's like dedicated handhelds. I think companies overstate the things that they want, like a system that like just streams and plays games that like you already have. Like, while that would be fun to just like take it and go, and that's what the Portal was for, I think dedicated handhelds do a better job. And now these PC handheld gaming rigs obviously are the best of both worlds, so they are the ones that you're going to be able to run everything on. You know, like your ROG Allies and your Steam Decks and what have you. So I think that like when it comes to the sales from the PlayStation Portal, you can see that like not everybody had the capability to just stream their games directly to their handheld. Some people didn't like the fact that like they couldn't have it as a dedicated thing by itself. It had to be connected to a PlayStation, which is kind of understandable for what that was. And it just was going towards the fact of like, look, there's nothing physical for this thing. You have to own everything digitally. Same with the PSP Go. And systems like that become like obsolete even faster. Like once you lose access to the shops. For example, I have a PSP. I have a PSP 1000. And I cannot access my account on that PSP anymore. Like you can't log in. So I forever have lost access to my library of digital games that I purchased on the PSP, which I had a ton. I had like Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection. I had Soul Calibur Broken Destiny. That's what it is, right? Broken Destiny. I had Shin Budokai Another Road. Anyway, I had a ton of games that like I had applicable on there, not even counting my PS1 library that was on there, like Mega Man Legends 2, Parasite Eve, Final Fantasy 7 and 8 and 9. I had like a ton of games like on there, but I couldn't download any of them because I couldn't access my account now, because I recently got this PSP back like a year ago. So instead, what I had to do is I had to jailbreak it so that I can actually like load games onto it, so I can actually have something to play without having physical UMDs. Now I have started collecting back again physical UMDs, and when I do get the physical UMD, I usually delete the ISO version or whatever, just so I can play the actual physical version. But there is game preservation involved in there too, where people say that if you want to preserve the life of your disc, then do the emulation version, and then just like you have that as a backup, and it's never going to be like, you know, destroyed, even though, because some Blu-rays have like erasure and stuff like that. But going just back on that, it's like all of these things compound into the fact that like I don't think we're ready for a digital future. So even though it seems like publishers specifically are like pushing for this, and it may actually reflect the zeitgeist, it may actually reflect the people that are purchasing and their purchasing power. Because like I said in my last video, if I purchase a game that I really like, sometimes I'll download it digitally and pre-order it physically, just for the fact of having that physical game for my collection, but also I get to play it right away or early access immediately, whatever like you have you for those. Like I just did for Demon Slayer 2 and like a bunch of other games. So I think that like while we're not there yet, because there's no infrastructure set up yet to support an all digital future, unless you're talking about like anyone who just lives in a major city. You're getting rid of access to everybody that doesn't really have the best internet, or you're cutting off access to people who may not even be able to download these games in general. Like some people just don't even have the internet. But I know it's crazy to think about people having these kind of consoles, and you know, like they're made for this stuff. So if you're going to go ahead with that, you might as well play something older, or just get a PC or something like that. But I think that when you're looking at like the vast majority of people that are going to be purchasing games, the reason that we haven't seen an explosion of something in sales like a PlayStation 2, for example, is because the library is less varied. We have these digital check-in markers. A lot of games are just sequels and are not checking the boxes that like we expect or we wish. And the ones that do pop off, people enjoy playing, but they don't really scratch the same itch for everybody. Like I talked about in privately, because I probably wouldn't even talk about this in the video. I am now, but I'm probably gonna catch flack for this. I think Helldivers 2 is boring. I played the game for a few months. I like upgraded my character and bought a bunch of stuff as much as I could. I played co-op with friends. The problem is that like the gameplay loop without a story has nothing for me to achieve personally. I like to have stories in my games, so when I'm going in there just doing the same gameplay loop where I'm just like looking for these rare materials and I'm just like, you know, waiting to get the drop ship and stuff like that, to me personally that like got old really fast. It's the same reason why I ended up deleting like Fortnite after a while, just because like I'm just tired of the gameplay loop. It's like the same thing over and over and over again with no reward of story or anything like that. And I know Fortnite does have a story, but it's like, I mean, it's barely there. But this is just to say that at one aspect is that like even though digital has a lot of positive benefits for it, it does have negative drawbacks. And I think most people that are intelligent enough to understand that argument, they know what I'm talking about. But another thing that I mentioned is a lot of the new generation of gamers are very young, and like a lot of them grow up in an all digital world already. Like the people that are born with like iPads in their hands and stuff like that, they're not going to understand even the point of physical media, because they're going to grow up in a household that doesn't have DVDs or Blu-rays. It's most likely their parents stream everything on like Netflix or Prime Video or something like that. All of their devices that they're gaming on, which would be like cell phones and iPads and tablets and stuff like that, before like they get their own console, is going to be digital everything anyway. So like they're preconditioned into a world where digital is the norm, not understanding like the drawbacks or the benefits of physical media, or the socioeconomic status of like different people in different parts of the world that can't necessarily game the same way that they can. I think that's also an argument to be made, that those people are going to be the ones that are gaming in the future. And as I said in my last video, like this gaming is not for my generation anymore. Like we can still game and be gamers and do it professionally and make money off it or whatever, but I mean like games are being made for the generation that's coming up. It's the same way how like governments run, right? It's like when you're old, like nobody cares what your vote is, because like the generation that is like two before you or whatever is the ones that are in charge, and they're the ones that are like setting the future. So it's kind of a sad fact of reality, and gaming moves very fast. Console cycles moving like every 7 years is like incredibly fast. If you had the option and you were giving one choice, and this is the only choice that you're given in this hypothetical scenario, to only go digital or only go physical, what would you choose? There's no both, there's no situational. It's just if you were only given one choice that the future has to be digital or physical, which one would you choose and why? So subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, so you can get future updates and all that good stuff. And the Discord link is in the description box down below. I will catch you guys on the next video. And then until then, I guess just like stay safe, guys.
Ivy Valentine subscribes to Mark Yoon. So should you. Enjoy your treat!
Sorry, but I gotta go.